The Hauntological Society. The Hauntological Society. The Hauntological Society.
What is up? Welcome to the Hauntological Society podcast bonus episode. Things are a little different today. We're taking it a little chill because this is not a true full episode, but we got something extremely special for you. I'm your host, Eric, and with me,
Wendy.
And we just had an amazing phone conversation with Margaret Langley. Did we not?
It was fantastic, yes.
If you don't know who Margaret is, Margaret has written 3 books called Haunted Broughton. They're available anywhere. She'll tell you in the conversation where you can buy them at. But go buy these books from her, and you can take them to her, and she will sign them for you directly. She's an amazing person. Check it out. I think you're going to really love it. What was your favorite part of the conversation, Wendy?
I like the story about the, the shadow figure being crouched down, because that's classic shadow figure. And then peeping around at her. She said it peeped around, a couple times, and I mean, man, that would totally freak me the hell out. So yeah, that.
She definitely had some, but she said even though her stories might sound creepy or something, like she was never scared, she never felt threatened, and so that's pretty cool. I know this is a story that everybody in town has been looking to hear. Every time I'm like, who wants to hear a ghost story? What do you want to hear? And everybody's always like, let's hear about Broughton Hospital. So,
well, it wasn't for years till like I started going out of town. I mean, I was always aware of Broughton, and I knew what it was, but I wasn't aware that in like the early years you could get like a weekend pass and I guess have your family or someone sign you out for the weekend. And so when we met someone from North Carolina, and then we always said we were from Morganton, they'd say, what are you, on a weekend pass? And I never got that, and I was like, no. And so, it took me some years to grow up before I realized what people were insinuating there.
oh man, just because you're from Morganton, everybody thinks you're part of the
you know everything about Broughton.
The mental institute. Check out this conversation. I think it's a very important conversation to have. It's a very informative conversation to have. And it's a very fun conversation to have. And hopefully Margaret would come back and visit us again, because she's a great guest, and I know she has a ton more stories to tell. I mean, hell, she's got 3 books written already.
I wish they would open up those tunnels.
Yeah.
For like, I don't know, make some money off of it, like, show us those tunnels down there.
Everybody asked about the tunnels. Everybody's like, they got tunnels. Everybody wants to know about the tunnels.
Well, she also mentioned that the maintenance man, my dad worked in maintenance over there, so pretty sure he's been in the tunnel.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. And she said she got to take a tour. Wonder if that was with work. Or
it was with her husband and another person, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think you can go to her website and she has pictures posted from inside.
Okay, because did she not say the head of maintenance?
I think so.
Okay, yeah, so...
She has 2 Facebook pages. Go check her out. Haunted Broughton and the History of Broughton Hospital. Both pages are run by her specifically, and go give her some love.
Yeah, give her some support. Buy those books. If nothing else, they're awesome collector pieces to have for your stash.
It's good local history. All right, well, without further ado, here is Miss Margaret Langley talking to us about Broughton Hospital. To yourself.
No, I kept it to myself pretty much, but I will say that we grew up in a very strict religious back home, environment, and Mama did teach us that there were demons, and we were very well educated on like the fact that there's good and evil. And we did live in a house that was, for whatever you want to say, was haunted. And I remember my oldest sister, when we heard noises and things walking upstairs and voices, she would run up the steps and rebuke whatever it was. And so we did actually, did see and hear things as kids. Now, Leela has also written a book, and I could tell you about that later, but her book is Historic Haunted Happy Valley over there in Caldwell County.
That's awesome. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. Yes, you'll have to check that out because she did a lot of research, and it's a very, very good book.
Yeah. So what was now was that house that you lived in, was it here in Burke County?
Actually, no. We grew up. My dad retired out of the Navy when I was about 6 years old, and we moved to Caldwell County, and we had rented a house in Collettsville. That was so old that my grandmother had actually spent a night in that house when she was a young girl.
Wow.
And so the house is no longer standing. It's been torn down, but it definitely was haunted. My sister Rebecca went home from school. It was right near Collettsville School. Mama was a teacher at Collettsville School. And Rebecca got sick and went home one day, and she heard someone walking up the steps. She thought Mama had come home to check on her, but nobody ever came around the corner. And so she, somebody walked up the steps to check on her, but it wasn't Mama. So. Yeah.
And so once you started working at Broughton, how long was it before you had your first experience?
Not too long. I was working. We worked in an open bed ward, and it's totally different than the rules and regs today with the HIPAA privacy and all that. You could actually stand at the front of the room and you could see, every patient. Nobody fell out of the bed or anything because you could watch everybody all at one time. And
dorm style.
There was a friend of mine, a nurse who was working with me there, excuse me, and I looked across the way towards the other unit because the women and the men were segregated, so I was looking back towards the women's side, and there hanging from the ceiling was like a misty cloud of just shimmering whatever, and the light was shining through it, and it was in the middle of the night. There could have been there was not steam from a shower or anything like that, and I called my friend's attention to it, and I said, "What do you think that is?" And she said, "I believe it's a ghost."
Wow.
And we watched it until it dissipated, and it was just like hanging there from the ceiling, just sort of moving, like a moving cloud of, and it wasn't steam.
Yeah.
But it was that was the first time I saw anything there, and somebody actually said to me the word ghost. And then after that, I saw a lot of things, especially in that big open bed ward.
Yeah.
I saw what looked to be a man squatting at the back of the room, back near the windows, and I literally saw this man or figure stand up and walk to my left and walk right into the wall. He walked past a patient that was at the back of the room. That patient was one of the worst ones we had. He would grab you and bite you, and so he was always at the back of the room. But this shadow figure, like I said, just stood up and walked right through the wall, right beside that man's bed.
Was he like fully transparent, or did he look, like you say, completely like a shadow, or what did he look like?
He was not transparent at all. So
He was a shadow figure.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was
everybody else saw
saying, "Oh
saw
God."
that. Sorry, you kind of broke up there. You were saying he was like a solid black shadow.
Yeah, solid black shadow. I couldn't make anything out except for just that it looked like a man.
Yeah.
And I believe it was man. It looked like a man, and strode purposefully right past this guy's bed. walked right through the wall.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, that was very, very interesting. And the fact that he was back there with this patient that we had that was so mean, for lack of a better word, because this patient was very sick, I guess, and would try to grab and bite and claw and scratch. And, we all had to watch out for him if you were close enough to be near him because he would get you.
Yeah.
So.
Did you
I
ever
don't
feel
know.
like scared or anything? But like, did anything ever feel like it was like malicious toward you, or were they always like just curious, or how would they react towards you?
I never felt like I was threatened as far as something trying to harm me. Nobody ever hit me or anything like that. But from that while I was working in the geriatrics division, our boss had an office, and it was across the street or across the road in another building. And we had to walk over there and sign out the timesheet while we were over there. We couldn't sign out. They didn't keep the timesheets in the place where we worked.
Yeah.
So one night I walked across over there and unlocked the door. It was a big building called the Bates Building. It's still standing there. And opened the door, went behind me, and proceeded to my boss's office, and was sitting in there at the conference room table. And I was signing out my timesheet a little bit in advance because I was getting ready to go on vacation, and I wanted to be sure. And she said, "Margaret," like that.
Yeah.
That probably was the worst scare that I'd ever had, just there because, like, number one, who is it? How do they know my name? And, I stopped writing.
Right.
And I looked around, and there was nobody in there but me. I didn't notice any temperature change or anything like that. And, it was just something I had done many, many nights before, no problem. And so, that kind of got me. It felt like my blood pressure must have went right straight through the roof. And funny enough, I finished signing out the time book and put it back, and then I trotted on out of there. But when I got to the door and tried to unlock the door to get out, I was fumbling with the key, and that was just pretty much a very scary experience as far as having my name called there in the building by myself.
Right.
And there was a nurse. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What were you gonna
say? We had a nurse, and she was murdered by her husband, and I thought. Because that was where she worked at all the time.
Oh, so the person who said your name you thought was the nurse who was murdered?
Yeah, I don't know that it was her, but she was. I've thought about it very much, and not knowing who would have known me, and because a disembodied voice out of nowhere, right in your ear, it's just kind of like, I knew it wasn't my mother's voice, so. And the only other person I knew who had been in that office, actually, this lady, her name was Gwen Aldridge, and her husband, and this is a true story. His name was Ben Aldridge, and he was a McDowell County deputy sheriff, and he stabbed her to death.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
What year did that take place?
I don't know why why the story or why he killed her, but it's true.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I've heard about there's a room where one of the patients had committed suicide, and people would see the spirit in the window, and it was so prevalent or so like often seen that they would have to block the window out. Are you familiar with this?
I have heard that story, but I have never witnessed that, and I'm not sure which building that occurred in. I don't think we're talking about the doctor nurse murder, the one that the psychiatrist murdered the nurse and committed suicide. That's not that story, right?
No, it's different. I believe it was a patient that did this, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, but the story that I heard was that it can be seen from Enola Road, so it's one of those buildings, and that when you drive by, people would claim to see what looked like a patient who had hung themselves in the window. And so they would, it happened so often they would call the police, and eventually they just got so aware of the activity that instead of like doing anything about it, they just boarded up the windows.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure which building that would have been.
Yeah.
Because to have been seen on the Enola Road, the roads have changed through there, so that's probably not not anything that I have actually witnessed. I've seen a lot of things,
Yeah.
but that was not one of them.
Okay.
I'm not surprised though. We've had patients who murdered other patients, and
Yeah.
was different things like that. That the spirits of those people, you can still like hear the sounds of a struggle sometimes. I didn't witness that. I have heard a lot of things. One morning we were getting patients up out of the bed and getting them to the dining room for breakfast, and it was myself and two other technicians.
Yeah.
And we could hear somebody walking up the hallway. It sounded like he was bare. It sounded like a man because it was a very forceful walk. It had bare feet, and you could actually hear the footsteps slapping on the tile as they walked up through there and walked right through the line of patients that were lining up and right into the dining room. And the girl that was in there began screaming, and of course had to talk to her and just tell her she couldn't leave there.
Yeah.
She had to stay, and watch the patients, because whatever it was or whoever it was not going to hurt her. We literally heard this entity just walk up the hall right past us and into the dining room.
That's a very helpless feeling, just to hear the footsteps and nobody to accompany the footsteps.
Right. That was pretty wild, and that was just one of a lot of things that we would witness together. And of course, I saw things by myself, and they saw things by themselves, and then sometimes we would witness things together. But it was very interesting.
Now, do the patients, like, with it being like a mental hospital, do the patients do they have problems with the spirits? Like, does it I don't know how to say this. Like when they see them, do they react to make them more active? Like, does it? Do you know what I'm trying to
More
say?
agitated,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
They make the patients. I that's a double-edged sword question there, because I know that a lot of patients there were influenced by many outside factors,
yeah,
But the sad thing would be is that the patients who actually did witness something and try to tell that they saw something were only considered to be more mentally ill, like
right,
like they're having hallucinations.
yeah,
Because I mean, when I worked in the youth department, some of those kids would see things and would tell it, and of course the doctors would not believe them.
yeah,
I mean, it didn't happen all the time, but I know I told the psychiatrist one of my experiences and what I had seen, and he looked at me so odd, and he told me, if I were you, I wouldn't be telling that. And
oh
my
my
thought was, well, are you going to put me away because I've seen some,
god.
do you think I'm crazy, is what I basically thought.
Do you think that they were trying to like intimidate you to like keep it under wraps, like so you wouldn't like let it out or let it be known to the public?
No, I don't think that they ever tried to intimidate me, but they did I had to let the hospital attorneys read the book before they would let me. That's kind of funny, but before I published the book, the
Oh,
first one anyway,
yeah.
uh, and then the second two, I just published them anyway.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that because I've actually called over there before to see if I could just walk the grounds, and they were very adamant. They're like, "No, no, you can't do this." And
Yeah, they're yeah.
I think I even went into is it the Avery building where the administration is? Like, I think I even went in there one day and was like, hey, can I just walk around? And they were like, no, we don't allow this. You have to leave.
Yeah, yeah, they've really gotten anal about it, and I guess that's my fault. But I always made it clear that nobody could just go over there if they're on board, you know.
Yeah.
And but I imagine that they were not too happy. However, in no way, shape, form, or fashion did I ever say anything about not going there to get help,
Yeah.
because it's a good place to go to get help, and they do a lot of good work there. So I would, recommend anybody who has any type of mental illness or situation they need help with to go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It's fun.
not ever.
I was
I'm
gonna say,
sorry.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say that I've, doing what we've since we've started doing the podcast, like I've been researching like a lot of different asylums, and Broughton is one of the hospitals that I can't ever seem to find anything negative about in its history. Other than a few of the like unfortunate murders that you say, whatever. But you hear these horror stories in these other places, and you just don't see that when it comes to Broughton.
Right. Well, I'm sure there's been their share of of negative things that have happened. However, it's nothing that has been so catastrophic, as these other places.
Yeah.
For the most part, I think Broughton Hospital has served the community and done good, in this area, and, being a state facility. Now, I do know in the early 60s it was overcrowded, and then President Kennedy had a lot of those, I'm not sure what you call, I'm not going to say desegregated, I'm not sure what the term for it is, but a lot of those folks were allowed to leave.
Yeah.
And because they were so overcrowded. But that would be one of the problems that they might have had back then, but the hospital itself is a lot of good.
Yeah.
In fact, there's just, I think it might be also the grounds. I'm not really sure,
Yep.
Who owned the grounds or who was on the grounds before Broughton got the property to build the hospital. But I think part of the problem with the hauntings is maybe who had the land before the state got it. I don't know if it were Indian territory.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I have heard people say that they have seen like a ghostly image of an Indian person, over there on the grounds walking. So you wonder, could that be possibly part of it?
They were definitely in this area, so it very much could have been there. That's for sure. And so what about, so everybody who's listening to this wants to know, what do you know about the tunnels?
Okay, well, I have been in the tunnels.
Wow.
I got to take a tour down there back in 2013.
Yeah.
It's been a while, and I was able to walk through the tunnels with my late husband and with a guy who was one of the maintenance men, or actually maybe the head of maintenance.
Yeah.
And so we walked through there. And I took some pictures, and actually they are posted on my Haunted Broughton Facebook page, or it could be my History of Broughton Hospital Facebook page, but I did post pictures of what I saw. And there are...
So you were saying about the tunnels now? You went down there with your husband and a friend?
Yeah. Right. So when you go into the tunnels, they're really amazing the way they're constructed.
Yep.
They're like a circular, and they're the ones that really I thought were awesome were they're made of brick, and they bricked it. There's no obvious support. You know what I'm saying? It's like a circular tunnel.
Okay.
And however they did it, like the ceiling is bricked. So you're in a tunnel of bricks, and I'm not really sure, how they built that, but it's very awesome. When you first walk in, it's cold down there, of course, cool.
Yeah.
There were rooms off to the sides of the walls that looked like, to me, could have been cells, or, for lack of another word, and they were dirt floored.
Whoa.
And I didn't see anything that looked like that would have chains, like they would have chained somebody to the wall down there.
Right.
But it was very, very primitive looking to me down there. Now they do use part of the tunnels now to run wires through and pipes for heating and all that kind of thing. And um, but even back in some of the further away parts of the tunnel was the old timey light bulbs. I mean, it was just really dated. It was just looked like you were walking back in time, and uh, there was no evidence of anything bad happening down there. But it was just spooky, for lack of a better word. It's pretty spooky down there.
Would you say it was like a time
Um,
capsule? Like it was like that kind of like dated? Like it was just like they picked up and left?
right. Well, yeah, sort of, kind of like that. And um, yeah, because I mean, even as we went down one tunnel, we came to a fork in the tunnel, and it was just old wood. I mean, it just was like, yeah, you'd step back in time, and the wires and the old light bulbs and everything just added to the creepy feel of it.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing was not like that, but the further away from the like, even once you came down the elevator and got into the tunnel, then the further away from the elevator you got, the older things looked to me.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah, and the hospital. Now this is when Dr. Murphy was when it was first opened. They first opened the hospital. All right, the Wade Broughton Hospital. They had, like, I'm not going to say a caste system, but like the worse off you were, the further away from the center building you were. So, like, Dr. Murphy and his family, they didn't want to hear the screams and the hollers and the hooping and all that. So the worst patients would be put further away from the center building. So, like, if you came in and you were really bad off and showing your hind end and just very, very sick, you would be placed on a ward that was further away from the administration or the center office. And then as you got better, they would move you closer in to the main building. And it's just that was just the way. If you improved,
Yeah.
you would get to move closer in to where the muckety mucks, where Dr. Murphy and all the doctors and everyone lived, because they lived at Broughton for the most part. The technicians or the people who work with the patients were not even allowed, to go home except one day a week to go to church, and then they stayed there the rest of the time.
Wow, they actually
So
like were living there to work there. That's crazy.
absolutely, yeah, and they would live up in the attic area of the building. So,
Ooh,
like, if you
creepy.
ride past the building and you look up at the very top where those semicircular windows are, that is where the staff used to live. And I've never been up in there, but I've had people tell me that they've gone up in there and they've got, like, old timey wheelchairs and old furniture and things up there, like a time capsule up there.
Man, I would love to see that stuff. I need to open that up. Let us at least look at it. That'd be so cool.
I know. Oh, I know. It would be so interesting to see. It would.
No, did
I
you?
also happen. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that I still have friends who work at Broughton, and I've heard on good authority that the new building is also haunted as
Oh,
well, and also that the Murphy apartments that were built back there behind the hospital. Now, they may not want me to say this, but they're haunted too.
see, when they
I've
started
heard.
building those, I immediately thought that they would still be haunted, and I was
Yeah.
I was waiting for that to come out. That's amazing.
But
But that
yeah,
also like proves further what you're saying. Like it could be the land and not the building itself. So there you go.
Or a
that's
combination of
true.
both.
No. Now I won't hold you much longer because I know you got to go to work. But you have 3 books out. Do you have any more?
Yes, I do.
Do you have any more plans to do any more, or are you done?
I'm not done, but I'm moving very slowly on it. I would like to say that if anybody has any stories, they would, everybody pretty well knows somebody, has worked there, has a grandparent or someone, a friend, anybody that has worked there. And if they have any stories they would like to share, because obviously I don't work there anymore, but I can relate the stories if they want to share them with me.
Yeah.
They can contact me through Facebook or what have you, and I'm taking stories now to write another book. Yeah.
That is awesome. I actually I have all three of your books, and we actually met you on Halloween a couple years ago. You were selling books we at a tattoo shop over on Carbon City Road,
Okay.
and you were there.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, you were there selling them, and so we actually came by and we sat there and talked to you for a little while. And I talked to Wendy, and I said I got to buy these books, and so I bought them, and I have the signed copies of your books.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. How did you like them?
Oh, I love them. I love them. Anything with a ghost story, I'm all about it. So I can't wait for
Oh,
the next book to come out. This
well, I'm working on it. It's just a work in progress.
this has been very special. I really thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Everybody wants to know about the history of Broughton. That's like one of the key topics when I say, "What ghost stories do you want to hear?" And everybody talks about Broughton. So this is awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, your books are Haunted Broughton. There are three of them. What's the best place for somebody to go buy them?
Well, I do sell those books in Valdez at Jim's Indoor Flea Market. And it is open on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And they can come out there and get a copy and I'll autograph it and put a personal inscription in it if they like. And I also sell them for half price. They can be bought from Amazon. They're $19.99 a copy on Amazon, and you don't get the autograph. So, you know, but if you should buy one there or anywhere and it doesn't have the autograph, I'll always be glad to take care of that and sign your book for you.
That's great. And your Facebook page is Haunted Broughton.
Haunted Broughton, and then the other Facebook page is called The History of Broughton Hospital.
Okay. Okay. And is that the best way for people to send you stories, like through those pages?
I would say so if they would contact me through there, send me, or just look at Margaret Langley. I'm on Facebook under that, and send me a DM. That would be fine too.
Okay. Sounds good. Listen, I'll let you go to work. Once again, thank you so
Okay.
much for doing this. We really appreciate you, and
Thank you.
hope to talk to you again real soon.
Okay, good. And have a good day, y'all.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye bye.